I was born 3 months early. I was a premature baby. I was a partially sighted child until I was 6 years old, so I know what colors and people and things like that are. But when I was 6, my optic nerve disconnected, and so I've been a totally blind person ever since I've been 6 years old. I've loved music all my life. I was a student at School for the Blind from 1958 to 68, and while there I took 6 years of piano, 1 year of organ. I learned to play my cornet there. At the end of freshman year, I went home to high school for 3 years in Shelby, Ohio. Was in the concert band, choir, everything musically I could get my hands on. I had never marched until I went to Shelby to high school, and they said, "Hey, would you like to be in the marching band?" So I tried out, and they showed me how to march, and it's like riding a bicycle. You know, you get that feel of the 8 to 5 with your lifting your feet and making those turns. And I marched part-time my sophomore, junior year, and my senior year I marched pregame and halftime, and that's when I first had the idea, because I knew I was going to go to Ohio State. They said, "Well, why don't you try out for the marching band?"
My first contact with Greg was a letter that he wrote to me when he was a senior at Shelby High School. And it's the first time anybody wrote and said, "I'd like to be a part of the OSU marching band, but I'm totally blind." Some letters you can answer right away, and others you just have to sit and think about it for a while. And I finally said, "Greg, you can come, but you're going to be treated like everybody else." And he immediately wrote back and said, "That's the only way I'm coming." So that was the start. We knew that it was going to be a challenge for both of us.
So I showed up for tryouts, and the first day when we went outside to learn all the moves, and of course Ohio State's marching techniques were all different from what I was used to in high school. The only thing that was the same was the memorization of music, really. But when we got outside, they would describe all the things we needed to know, like facing moves that the band makes for when they come on the field for the ramp and things like that. Somebody would take me aside and show me what those moves were with my feet and my hands. And those guys had never been around a blind person before, but you never would have known that.
We have a system, an audition system. You are graded over a period of 2 days on your marching skills. You are receiving at least one sit-down audition. We have these grades, and we have them on little tags, and the tags are up on a board. And the director is the one who looks at the tags, and with others in the room says, "I think this is one we need to cut. The marching scores and the playing scores are below average." And then you get somebody with extremely high playing grades but low marching grades, or the other way around, and you really have to decide what's the potential here. And with Greg, when it came down to when his name was on the board, the marching grades were there, the playing grades were there, and it was kind of like, what are we discussing this for? Because if we believe in our own system, now we know he's limited. We know he can't do everything that others can do, but he can contribute. And let's take it and see what happens. And he went through it not only the first time, but 4 years. He had to qualify every year to stay a member of the band.
I never wanted to have a marching assistant on the field, and the mistakes I made weren't mistakes of omission, they were mistakes of commission, because, for instance, for facing movements, I might turn 89 degrees instead of 90. It was correcting those mistakes that was a problem, because of course the band moves at 180 beats a minute, and correcting any mistake at that speed is difficult.
He really did everything the band did except march in a standard pregame and halftime show. Any of the pep rallies on campus. We used to do Script, Ohio after football games. We put him in the revolving block O, and he was about the last one out. So he didn't have to go around the big O and the H and the I and the O. And you'd never find Greg in there. You wouldn't say there's some guy that's, he looks like he's lost.
I marched the Rose Parade 3 years, 73, 74, 75, and the inaugural parade in 1973, I marched in that too. Then I marched all the time during rehearsals if somebody was absent.
1974, and we knew it was going to be Greg's last season in the marching band, and we really wanted to get him on the field for part of a halftime show. And of course, the formations and the drills are very complicated, but we ended up with one that was pretty much a standstill for the finale of the show. And Greg's squad leader came up and he said, you know, I have a position right close to the field, and he said I could march off and Greg could march on and take my spot.
That day was a big day for me because I knew that was my last game. I challenged for 3 years, every week challenged to try to get on that field. It was such a big thrill to march out and finally be a part of the block band and play 2 songs and then march off with the block band my last game.
Greg's appearance in the band and his membership, it showed us that there are some special people, and here's somebody who doesn't fit the norm, and he's there. And a couple of years later there were women that didn't fit the norm. We'd been an all-male band for almost 100 years, and I think it just opened up our minds to the possibilities that somebody can come in from a different background and still be successful as a member of the band.
Everybody pitched in the marching band, the military band. It was a new experience, obviously, for them as well as for me. I didn't know what to expect. They didn't know what to expect. I always wanted to make it and do the things that I could do and go as far as I could go on my own, but everybody helped me to do it from then until now. Those are all still my friends. They all pitched in forever to help me enjoy that experience as much as they did.
This was the Woody Hayes era. And Woody said, you can't pay back, but you can pay forward. Now let me tell you what Greg has done to pay forward. He, of course, marched in the band for 4 years. He regularly attended the OSU Marching Band alumni and marched. Later, Greg was elected president of the TBDBITL Alumni Club, all the marching band alumni. They elected Greg. He is our, we call him president for life of the Script Ohio Club, which is a fundraising arm. Several years ago, this group called the Hyper Band, which is band alums, small groups that play at wedding receptions and birthday parties. Greg coordinates that. It's an absolute example of what can be done.